One of the anime that I've been looking forward to the most this season is The Dangers in My Heart. This is a really engaging, really funny, very introspective rom-com that I came across months ago, and it has been an absolute delight to read. This is something that you might have seen me recommend as one of those surprisingly wholesome manga that you gotta check out back when I was doing kind of like my little mini wholesome series back in February, and it was one of the anime that Scott and I said I'm really looking forward to when we were doing our review for all of the major anime coming out this particular season. Well, after having seen the very first episode, I have some thoughts because this is not the adaptation that I was expecting, and I'm going to have a look at some of the strengths and weaknesses that come out of this very first episode. Hi there everyone, Lars here from Camille's Harem, not just a podcast for novice writers by novice writers, but also a YouTube channel by novice writers for novice writers, because writing is an adventure, it's more fun with friends. And wow, like I said, this was unexpected. The biggest thing that I see in terms of changes right here is that they really tone down the darkness that comes from Ichikawa in the opening chapters of The Dangers in My Heart. So as opposed to what we get here at the beginning of the episode, when Ichikawa's reading his little book right there and he's looking at all of the different classmates he's got and he's like, oh, I could kill you all. It's just a matter of time until I do. And he's acting as the perfect little angsty, horrible kid. We all knew at least one person like that back in high school or middle school, and I was that kid for a little while at one point. So maybe that's one of the reasons why this story kind of resonates a little bit with me. But in any case, it is so much darker in the manga as he contemplates murdering his classmates, especially Amada. All of that is taken out. We get the lip service from him, but it's not accompanied by the graphic details. I think part of that is because this is a story that realizes it is a rom-com, and it definitely wants to play up that whole romance aspect. The writers for the anime already kind of realize it would take a whole lot to redeem this character and make him into the protagonist that we all love and root for if we show him in such a horrible light there at the beginning. And they do have a point. They do have a point that it's very hard to convince, especially modern audiences who are way more quick to judge characters and are way more firm in their judgments and far less forgiving. It's very difficult to redeem a character like that in their eyes. So that's a big difference right there. I, however, think that this is a bit of a weakness because this already begins to rob the personal development that Ichikawa goes through as he gets to know Yamada and the people in this class a whole lot better and begins to slowly transform as a person. This, in the manga, is definitely a very, very slow burn for him, coming to realize who he was as a person he doesn't like and that he wants to change, that he wants to change for the right reasons, and that he does. Another thing within this episode that really caught me off guard, and I had to go back and reread through the opening 6 chapters of the manga to make sure that I got everything right, is just how fast this goes. And I'm not even sure if I exactly like where this episode ends right after Ichikawa has hurled his bike in order to save Yamada from Senpai, who is really, really laying it on thick as he's trying to flirt with her and get her contact information. In the manga, that moment where Ichikawa confesses that it's like, oh yeah, it was me, but you know, I hit the gas instead of the brake and I lost control and there it is. That part is drawn out a little bit more in the manga and you get Yamada sincerely laughing. And the thing is, this is a very important point right here because it's unclear if Yamada really was paying that much attention to Ichikawa before. I mean, there's certain hints later on in the manga that give you an idea that maybe there was already some kind of brewing feelings, at least from her end, but definitely in this particular moment, Yamada really, really latches onto the fact that a person within her class, someone who's already shown some sort of niceness to her, stepped in their own funny way to break up a very awkward situation. While Yamada is a bit of an airhead, she is not as stupid stupid as she first comes across. She's actually pretty deep and pretty smart, though there is still kind of that airheadedness. It's kind of like the whole joke of meeting a blonde. Blondes are dumb, but actually if you get to know a blonde, blondes are really intelligent. They just have a different way of thinking. And I should know because I live in a family full of blondes. But in any case, it is such a crucial moment there within the manga, because it really is a turning point at the very beginning that that ensures really that Ichikawa and Yamada's paths are now going to cross way more often, and Yamada is going to be the one who really pushes this, because hey, there's this funny guy in my class, he saved me from a situation, he's been there for me before, I kind of like being around him, I am going to pursue him, which goes against all the classic norms of Japanese culture and of a Japanese rom-com. But here we are, and that's one of the things that I really enjoy about this story, is how the heroine really pushes things along. And again, it all comes back to this moment, but the anime rushed to it so that way we could get to it in the first episode, so that way we can now launch ourselves into more of that good rom-com fluffy goodness, and we've done so by turning our backs on kind of the more darker aspects. What this means is that the tone and the pacing for The Dangers in My Heart is now way more different than what we get within the manga. So we can expect this anime to be a slightly different beast. Now then, they have adapted almost everything from the first 6 chapters, word for word, scene for scene, shot for shot, which communicates all of that fun and goodness that is from the manga. So in that sense, it is a good proper adaptation. It's just interesting to me how they've decided to fiddle around with the pacing and with the tone, and I think that's again to help to emphasize the romantic aspect of the story rather than focusing so much on the actual change of characters like Ichikawa and Yamada. That might change in later episodes, and I really hope that it does, because one of the things that makes this story so good is the engaging characters and how they develop as individuals throughout the story and through their interactions with each other and through the romance that slowly blossoms between them. But if you're looking for romantic fluffy goodness, I mean, you've got it all right here. You've got Ichikawa who's hating Yamada and dreaming about murdering her, and then when he has his seeming chance to do it, what does he do? He gives her his box cutter, which, why the heck does he have a box cutter? Yes, I know he's an insane maniac, or at least that's the image that he has for himself. He actually isn't as horrible as he imagines himself to be, but he's trying to live up to this persona, and then when he has his moment to do his evil deed, he hands over the box cutter because he realizes that Yamada is having a really hard time struggling with her project, and it's so funny that she thinks that she's doing a great job when it's very clear that she is messing up, and her friends are all like, yeah, you kind of messed up, and it's interesting to see how Yamada takes it. And the thing is this, again, she is a deep character. This did kind of hurt her, but she understands what's going on and she's kind of just going with the flow. Ichikawa picks up on this, but he completely misunderstands what's going on, and this leads him to doing an absolutely ridiculous thing in front of the entire class. Why does he do it? He himself doesn't fully understand, and that comes down to the title, The Dangers in My Heart, because while Ichikawa has this horrible sense of himself, he has this dark image that he wishes to live up to, there's a better version of himself deep within. And the thing is that both of them are dangerous in a way. You have the dark version, which is obviously dangerous to himself and to the people around him, but then you have this better version of himself who is a danger to the persona that he has crafted for himself, and it's a version of himself that doesn't go with the mold of society. Weirdly enough, as the social outcast, he kind of fits in with the parameters of Japanese society, in that Japanese society has already determined where he should be. But should he come out of that dark persona, he will become a character who kind of defies expectations, which in Japanese society is a no-go. And then we get the really hilarious scene there in the library where Ichikawa pretends to be a cat because he has ratted himself out as being a spy or spying on this very personal, very awkward conversation between classmates, and he's trying to defuse the situation. Yamada gets in on it, and they both begin meowing like cats, and the classmates, I really do believe that they kind of know what's going on, but they take the cue and they get on out so that way they can have their fun little conversation. And you know what? It's nice that there is this little side adventure where, as all of the boys in the class are like, you like the fat girl? You're weird, you're a perv. But then actually when he has his chance to be alone, while he is a middle schooler and still acts stupid, there is some wholesomeness there. And that's something that we like to see in a good romance. It's not just like, ooh, here are two ideal characters and they're the only ones whose feelings matter. No, it's nice to have side characters who have their own lives going on. And that's a good thing to have in a rom-com because it actually helps to complement the romance of the main characters. And then, oh boy, we get the little moment, which this is totally awkward, and yet again, it fits really, really well for middle school boys. Ichikawa goes to have a look at a magazine that Yamada is supposed to be in. He thinks this is something, and all those little hormones begin firing off, and he takes that magazine, and we know that he's going to be doing something with it. But it's also fun to see that Yamada's there. We get to see a side of her that even though she is showing off all of this confidence with how she's dressed, with how she holds herself, she is self-conscious, and she's not as confident as she tries to appear because she wants people to recognize her. She wants people to praise her good work. She intentionally messes around with the magazines, and she's trying to get people who are reading the magazines to notice her. Why? Well, it's not because she's actually a pompous girl, as we're going to find out later on, but it's because she is indeed looking for validation. She's looking for praise. She understands how weird she is by being a very tall girl in middle school. She's far more developed than all of her peers. It makes her stick out. She is self-conscious of this. Again, the whole saying in Japan, or this is as best as I understand it, is the nails that stick up are the ones that get hammered. And while Ichikawa, weirdly enough, has found his niche within society, Yamada is someone who, while she has friends and she gets along with everyone pretty well in middle school, she understands that she literally sticks out, and it's kind of embarrassing for her, and she wants to find people who are willing to accept her for the anomaly that she is. And then we get to the bike scene, where Ichikawa steps on in and hurls the bike to break up the weird, awkward interaction between Senpai and Yamada. This right here is, again, a very important moment for Ichikawa because this different persona, this one's buried deep within him, reveals itself, and he doesn't fully understand why he is doing this, because as far as he's concerned, he doesn't really care about Yamada. And there's way more things that are going to come up later on where we're going to see more of his feelings, how these different personas of his conflict with each other within. And this is, again, just a very important turning point because that inner persona, that inner goodness is beginning to come out and contradict the darker facade that he has crafted for himself. So yeah, there's a lot going on in just this one episode. And while it is a different adaptation than what I was expecting, it is still really good. I'm still going to continue watching it. I had a lot of fun watching it. The thing is that the tone, the atmosphere that you establish for a story is so very important. Because again, like I said at the beginning, the manga is very clear about the darkness within Ichikawa, and that's important for his personal growth over the course of the manga. Because we don't have that here, the character arc, the character progression for Ichikawa within the anime is going to be markedly different. That doesn't mean it's bad. It can still actually be a very good thing. But for those who are fans of the manga, I think that they'll begin to recognize that this has a different tone. This right here is really interesting. This isn't quite the story that I fell in love with, even though it is an almost beat for beat, scene for scene, word for word adaptation. This is why setting the atmosphere, setting the tone for a story is so very important. There are so many different stories that if you look at them, really, they are almost on the brink of becoming a completely different genre altogether. There are some dark fantasies that are just two sentences away from becoming comedies. There are some comedies that are just a couple of beats away from becoming tragedies. There's some dramas that are so close to becoming romances or becoming action flicks. And why is that? Well, the thing that determines what they are is the atmosphere and the tone that you decide to establish in the very first scene or in the very first chapter of your book. This is why established authors make it very clear that one of the most important things to nail at the very beginning is not just simply hooking people with some really interesting words and scenes, but with an atmosphere that will complement the rest of the book. And audiences will realize when that atmosphere changes. And if it does, you better have a very good reason for changing it, because you've already hooked them with one kind of atmosphere, and if you're not able to change that properly within time, people will feel cheated deleted out of the story that they thought they were going to read or watch, and you can lose your audience very, very fast that way. And so I think, again, this is one of the reasons why the anime decided to go for the more fluffy route, because while the manga eventually gets there, that is quite a big change when we think about it, where Ichikawa ends up from who he once was, and coming back to knowing your audience and realizing that a lot of people might not be quite forgiving towards such a dark character like Ichikawa is in chapter 1 of the manga. Then maybe it might be better to change up who he is within the anime and focus more on the good fluffy rom-com stuff. So I'm looking forward to seeing how the rest of the anime plays out. If people really enjoy my breakdowns of the show, like people have done previously for Please Don't Tease Me, Miss Nagatoro and Vermeil and Gold, if that's the case, then I will certainly do an episode by episode breakdown as best as I can for this anime as it comes out. If that's what you'd like to see, then please let me know in the comments below. And let me know what you think about the anime if you've had a chance to see it, or the manga if you've had a chance to read it. And if you haven't, I highly recommend them. But in the meantime, if you're looking for more solid writing advice, then please feel free to check out our other videos here on our YouTube channel. You can also head on over to our podcast, Camille's Harem. And if you're an author looking for good writing challenges, you can head on over to our Pinterest page. Camille's assembled a bunch of different exercises for you to check out. If you'd like to support us, please like, share, subscribe, comment, all that good stuff. But even better, you can check out the books that we've published. Links for them are in the description below. Thank you for joining us in this adventure that we call writing. And until the next video, y'all, tschüss.